Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Orange Sports Channel. I'm Kerry Williams, and today I'm going to be previewing the middle infielder's position. If you haven't already, I know that Frank put out my video previewing the corner infielder positions. So if you haven't gotten a chance to watch that one, be sure to watch that one just because I cannot put together a total infield preview and keep that short for you guys. I want to give each guy the lot that they deserve, and I want to be sure to hit first base, second base, third base, and shortstop all as capable as I can. So today I'm going to be previewing the second base position as well as the shortstop position. Thankfully, Tennessee didn't lose anybody at the shortstop position following last season, unless it was a transfer or two, or a guy like Alex Perry that, of course, would have been playing first base this season, but of course, having to step away from the program this upcoming season due to some personal issues. But overall, shortstop position is set going into the season. I will hit on that in a second. But second base, of course, you lost the greatest player, one of the greatest players in Tennessee baseball history, in Christian Moore. Um, the guy was legendary, to put it simply. He gave you everything you could have ever asked for and 1,000 times more. Um, the guy put up a season that nobody would have ever expected. I'm sure he even surpassed his own goals in this past season. I mean, I don't know how in any world that he didn't win SEC Player of the Year or National Player of the Year. Um, it's especially considering he was the um, all Omaha team and a pretty much a unanimous first team All American. So it's amazing to me how he didn't win hardly any awards, considering he batted 375 last season, slugged an absolutely ridiculous 797, had 111 hits, also had 19 doubles, had just an absolutely absurd number when it comes to home runs, putting up 34, which even having 20 home runs in a college baseball season is a lot and is really good. And he added 14 more onto that. So 34 home runs is absurd. He also had 74 RBIs, which seems like not too much, but him being the leadoff guy, he doesn't necessarily get as many opportunities to bat some guys in as your third and fourth guys in the lineup do. He also had the College World Series cycle. You don't win the College World Series without that performance in game one in Omaha, because if you lose the first game in Omaha, you are not going to win at all. It's just not set up for you to do that. So thankfully, Tennessee pulled out that game in a 12-11 thriller and moved on and, of course, won the College World Series. He, of course, went on and was the eighth overall draft pick by the Los Angeles Angels, and you will see him in the MLB this upcoming season. So that is a huge, huge guy that you have to replace. You will not sniff replacing that, unfortunately. Well, not really, unfortunately, because you can't do it. He had that good of a season last year, and it may be a few years before you see another guy in orange have even that close of a good as a season. Um, but you do have some options going into this season in second base because, of course, you have to have guys to play the position. The guys I have listed is Gavin Keelan, Hunter High, and Arnold J. Abernathy. First off, Gavin Keelan is a 5'11", 100-pound junior transfer from Louisville. Bats lefty and played shortstop for Louisville last season. Started, I think, 54, 56 games there for them at the shortstop position. Ended up being an all ACC third team fielder for them last year. Started, of course, at shortstop last season for them and had a great season, and transferred into Tennessee knowing he will be the starting second baseman. Batted 330 for them last year. Only had 9 home runs, which doesn't seem like a lot, but at the second base position, essentially this season, that's kind of a number you would expect from your typical second baseman. Had 41 RBIs, had 23 doubles, though, which is a great number. I mean, that's 4 more doubles than Christian Moore had last season. If I remember correctly, that is more doubles than Blake Burke had, or actually right around that same number. Blake Burke might actually had 24, 25. But either way, that's 23 doubles. That's a really high number. Anytime you can get 20 plus doubles in a season, that's great, especially doing that in as competitive of a league as the ACC is. He also only struck out 22 times last season. And that's the eye opener for me of this is a guy that doesn't strike out a lot, because typically if you're playing 56 games, you expect 50 strikeouts on the season. Essentially, that's kind of what you kind of expect, 45 to 50 strikeouts on the season. And he cut that number in half, coming in with only 22 strikeouts. So that's a huge thing going into the season of Gavin Keelan may not be a guy that necessarily has a lot of home runs or has a lot of RBIs, but he's going to get a good amount of doubles for you. He's not going to strike out. And by him not striking out, that increases his on base percentage, and that moves some Tennessee base runners around a lot more, and essentially could create a lot more things to happen for Tennessee. So that's an extremely likable number. That's a great number. 22 strikeouts on an entire college baseball season. Magnificent. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we brought him in. He also hit for the cycle last season against Virginia Tech. Um, Anytime you hit for the cycle is a good thing. It could be a little bit more of a doled down thing if you do it against a team like Morehead State. But he actually did it against the ACC team in Virginia Tech. So anytime you can do that against an actual quality team is a good thing. So he does have potential. He can be a great player. We will see how he pans out. I feel like he has a great season at second base, just because there isn't necessarily a lot of competition for him. And he kind of stepped in from Louisville, knowing he would be the starter there this season. You also have Hunter High, who was a guy on the roster last year. I'm pretty sure he battled some injuries last year, which is why you didn't necessarily see him on the field a lot. He wasn't the highest ranked guy. He was 500 overall coming in from Perfect Game. But I know the staff loves him, and I know the staff wanted to see a lot more out of him last year, but I just don't think things went his way whenever it came to showing that. But he's a guy that you will see on the field this year. I know I mentioned him in my first base video just as a guy that has played first base, because Hunter High is a kid that can play anywhere. He can play anywhere across the infield, and he can play anywhere across the outfield. So you may see him at any position this season. We, of course, don't know. There's not even a roster out yet, so time will tell when it comes to that. I'm high on him, just like his last name, and I think he does have a pretty good season. You may not see him in the fashion that you, of course, would like to, but if the staff loves him, then I love him. And I think he does put up some good numbers this season batting lefty. I don't know about when it comes to fielding side of things, but I feel like he's pretty good there considering he can play anywhere on the field. You also have Arnold J. Abernathy, who was brought in as a true freshman, as a shortstop / second base defender. I don't see him seeing the field this year at that position, but he will be on the field. You will see the kid. He will more than likely be in the outfield. I will hit on him in my next previewing the outfield. So I'm not going to hit on him too much. I just wanted to list him as an option at second base because you may end up seeing him. But I will hit on him more in my outfield preview. Overall, that wraps up second base. So Gavin Keelan and Hunter High are the two guys that you can essentially look forward to playing second base. You also have, of course, all your shortstop guys could play second base. And then, of course, you can add in Arnold J. Abernathy. But overall, moving on to shortstop, Dean Curley. He appears to be your starting shortstop this season. You also have Ariel Antigua, Manny Marine, Robinson Martin, Dean Morrow, and Chris Newstrom. Those are all 6 options that can play shortstop for you, need be. But you only really have 2 guys that you're necessarily going to see, possibly a third. Dean Curley is a guy that last year batted .285 for you, slugged .502, had 12 home runs and 50 RBIs, as well as 10 doubles. And one of the eye-opening things about him that kind of shows you how he performed last season, he had 2 hits in each of the final 3 College World Series games against Texas A&M. That's a really good statistic. I mean, that's 2 hits in each of the 3 biggest games of the season. That's great production. And that kind of shows you what he did last year in the entire year. He wasn't a guy that necessarily popped off in home run numbers. He didn't necessarily pop off in RBI numbers, but he got on base a lot. He gave you a lot of hits. I know he had a few stolen bases. I think he had 12, which is a good number. So he's a very versatile guy. And as a true freshman that wasn't predicted to start going into the season prior to Ariel Antigua going down with injury, he fielded the shortstop position great. He gave you everything you asked for when it came to fielding shortstop. In my opinion, he did 1,000 times better than I would have ever expected. And he's also a guy that can play third base. And he proved that last year playing a really good third base spot whenever he did get the chances to play third base. Also, you have Ariel Antigua, of course. He's the guy that was your predicted starter last year at shortstop. Had a hand injury, so that gave Dean Curley the spot, and Dean Curley, of course, took it and ran away and had the great season that he did. But Ariel Antigua, if you've heard me before, I have said Ariel Antigua is an MLB defender. His glove is by far, I don't even have to see the guys on the team this year. I already know his glove's the best on the team. There's no understating that. I saw him last year in person in pre-games a lot of time. The plays this kid can make is MLB level. I mean, there was reasons why late in the game in the postseason, Tony Vitello would take out a really good glove in Dean Curley and put in Antigua because Antigua is an elite glove and makes the hardest plays look simple. I mean, the kid's hands are out of this world. I'm not even joking. Like, if you get the chance to go to a Tennessee baseball game, just if he's not starting, watch him in warm-ups, field the shortstop position, and you will be amazed at how good the kid is. He's so fluent. Like, I'm not even joking. He could start on an MLB team tomorrow playing shortstop just in the fielding aspect of things. The bat's not there. Hopefully the bat can get there. We will see how that turns out. If the bat gets there, gets decent enough, then look out. Because then you have Ariel Antigua, who essentially, if his back turns around and gives you what you would like for it to do, he is your starting shortstop. And then you move Dean Curley over to third base, and that puts Andrew Fisher over in right field because Andrew Fisher is the guy that right now is your starting third baseman, but he got booted to right field last year at Ole Miss because he wasn't fielding the third base position good enough. And I feel like that could happen again this year. And to me, that's the best case scenario possible in that happening just because Ariel Antigua is your starting shortstop. Dean Curley is going to play third base. Gavin Keelan's your second baseman. Then you're set. If that happens, you're set because that allows Andrew Fisher to still be on the field in right field, and you still have the bat of Andrew Fisher, knowing how good that is going to be this season. And then you have a guy that the fans love, I love, and Ariel Antigua getting to prove himself on the field just because the kid's so stinking good. The kid is so unimaginably good. I know that Frank himself got to watch him in the Appy League. I know he played for Greenville this past summer. He batted 300 for them, actually, and he made some ridiculous plays for them. I know that Frank got to see him in person for, I believe, the first time. And even he said the kid's glove is just something like you never see. And it's weird to say that just considering he's not the starting shortstop. But you have Dean Curley, which is what he is. And Dean Curley, a guy, and Ariel Antigua's a guy that if you combined and made Ariel Curley, you would have a top 3 draft pick of how good Dean Curley's bat is combined with how good Ariel Antigua's glove is. That's just you have two guys that are two opposite guys kind of, but they're both, if you combine them, they're elite. And Dean Curley's, of course, a more well put together shortstop, considering he has the bat already, and he has a great glove. It's just Ariel Antigua's is the next level. But it's just one of those things. We'll see how it pans out. I know the fan base wants to see Ariel Antigua get a lot of playing time. We, of course, don't know. I feel like we do see him in some sort of fashion this season. Otherwise, he may be hitting the road because it's hard to keep a guy like him put back behind you on the roster for essentially what would be 3 years. So hopefully he can see the field because he's a guy you cannot afford to lose. Because you will need him in the future just because of how good the kid has the capability of being. You also have some other guys. You have Manny Marine, who I believe you will see in some sort of way this coming season. He was the 88th overall prospect from Perfect Game. He's a true freshman from Florida. He's a guy that can play the shortstop position great. I don't know if you'll necessarily see him playing the shortstop position this season. You could see him at second base, getting some playing time on the field. You may even see him at third base. We don't know how that'll pan out. He's been mentioned of being capable of seeing the field this year. So we, of course, don't know how that will play out. But I feel like you do see him at some point getting some playing time. You also have some guys that I just don't think you will see at the shortstop position, but they, of course, are capable of playing in Robinson Martin, Dean Morrow, and Chris Newstrom. I know Chris Newstrom I mentioned in my corner infielders preview of third base is because I feel like he can play third base, and if he has an avenue to see the field this season, it is at third base. Dean Morrow and Robinson Martin are two freshmen out of high school that I just don't think see the field this year, although you could look out for them to play shortstop. Overall, you got 6 guys that can play shortstop, and I'm sure there's some other guys that could play. You make that 7 guys with a guy like Arnold J. Abernathy, make that 8 guys with a guy like Hunter High, make that 9 guys with a guy like Gavin Keelan. So you have a plethora of options that could play shortstop if a disaster scenario happens, and you have to have some different guys try to step in that position. So Tennessee is absolutely set when it comes to the middle infielder spot. I feel like you have guys that could play an elite shortstop, play an elite second base. Tennessee is loaded for what could be the first time in a while when it comes to those 2 positions, because even if you look at last year, you had Dean Curley and Ariel Antigua, which were just two true freshmen, and you didn't know what you were getting there. You knew it was going to be hard for a guy to step into the shortstop position like Dean Curley did and have a good season. And you ultimately had Christian Moore as second base, who's not really naturally a second baseman. He's an outfielder guy who ended up playing second base and playing a great second base position, and also could play shortstop. But overall, there wasn't a lot of options there last season of that you were knew would put up good numbers like there was this season. I mean, this year you have Ariel Antigua, Dean Curley, and Gavin Keelan. And I would even throw in Hunter High as 4 guys that can play the middle infield and put up extremely good numbers for you this season. So Tennessee is definitely stacked when it comes to that position. And overall, I think the middle infielder position is better than the corner infielder's position right now. If I had to say, I know Tennessee's loaded across the infield, and we'll see, of course, how things pan out. But I think the middle infielder position is stacked. I know it's stacked for years to come. There's a lot of guys that you can look forward to. Antigua, of course, if he doesn't get the playing time you expect. Manny Marine, that's a kid that you want to hold on to in the program. You don't want him to hit the portal just because I feel like he'll be your starting shortstop at some point down the line. And of course, you need to retain the Robinson Martin, the Dean Morrow, and Chris Newstrom, because those are all very capable guys. You're not coming to play baseball for Tennessee if you're not good enough to play baseball for Tennessee. This staff is not going to bring in guys just as depth pieces. They're going to bring in guys that are all capable of playing in the SEC, and they have, of course, done that, and they have proven that. So overall, second base and shortstops stacked. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my corner infielders preview. I will also be putting out an outfielders preview, which is the one I'm most excited for, just because the outfielder position is extremely stacked, and you will see so much movement throughout the outfield throughout the entire season, just like you kind of did last season. Overall, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. I know Frank has some links and stuff to become a member in the channel if you're available or capable of doing that. All the profits that go into the channel do come back to benefit you guys in creating content, just because this is some timely stuff. And overall, just thank you guys for tuning in today. I do hope you enjoyed this preview, and I hope you're able to watch some of my other previews and enjoy those just as much. Overall, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And as always, it's a great day to wear the orange.